If you are getting any kind of trouble, so you just directly call me, because I'm just using my mobile data, so you might get problem. Okay, let me start with this point, that is exception handling in C++. So in last lecture, we have seen the file handling in C++. So how to read, how to write that files to and from the memory that we have seen. So today, this is actually most important part from this, the C++ or object-oriented programming. So that is the exception handling. So before just moving toward the exception handling, first we need to see, or we need to know which kind of error are there in the C or CPP, or we can consider Python programming also. So which are the errors? These first we will see, and after that we'll just go to the next one, because this exception handling is related to the error handling. Okay. So whenever we start the programming either in C, CPP or Java or any Python programming, so first thing that comes in our mind, that is about the error, right? So we have these three kinds of error. Okay. So in C++ or in Java or in any other programming languages, we have these three kinds of error. So first one is the syntax error, second is the logical error, and third one is the runtime error, or we can say that is exception error, right? And that we are dealing in today's lecture. Okay. So everyone is having idea about the syntax error, what that syntax error is, because if you are just learning the programming language, then that first error normally comes in front of us, that is the syntax error. So the examples for the syntax error are, that most common example is if you are missing any semicolon, then we can say that compiler shows that error, right? So that is the nothing but the syntax error. So for writing the any program, we need to know the rules of that particular programming language. So first rule is that we need to put the semicolon after every statement in C++, right? Right. So this is the basic rule. And whatever the functions we are using in C or CPP or in Java, so these functions are having some kind of the syntax, and we need to use these syntax, like how many parameters we need to pass to the functions, right? If you are using the inbuilt function or something. So whatever the syntax there in that programming, we need to know that program syntax first. And if you are not putting that syntax in proper way, then we get that error, and that error is nothing but the syntax error, right? Now which one would be the logical error? And see that syntax error, that is mostly detected by the compiler. So that's why normally we say this is called as compile time error also. Okay. Now next one is the logical error. So this logical error, and we can say runtime error. So this logical error is not detected by the compiler. So if you are writing any program, and if you are using any concept, or if you are writing any algorithm in that program, then we need to apply some kind of logic there. And if that logic is not correct, then your program will not work. So simple example is, if you are writing program for the bubble sort or something, and in that if you are not writing that logic properly, so we will get that error, right? So that kind of error, we can say that is a logical error. And that last one is the runtime error or exceptional error. So this runtime error occurs at runtime normally, and normally this is not detected by again compiler. So this error is very difficult to find out normally, right? So one example, I'll just tell you about the runtime error or the exception. So that if you are dividing any number by zero, if you are suppose having that program for addition, division of two numbers, and first number you just accepted like 10 and second is accepted as 2, then that program will work properly. But if suppose first number you accepted like 10 and second is 0, so 10 by 0 that will give an error. And this is a exception, or we can say that is runtime error. And normally these kind of errors are very difficult to find out. So whenever we just write the program, so at that time we need to think about these errors and we need to remove these errors, right? So for that we have three keywords. So try, throw, and catch. So these three keywords are used to handle these kind of exceptional or runtime errors, right? So in short, I'll just tell you about the errors. So first is syntax error. So such error which are arises due to poor understanding of the language rules are called syntax or compile timer. Already I just told you, if you are not having idea about the rules of any that particular language, so you will get that syntax error. So examples I just given here, missing semicolon, or we can say that is undefined variables. So if you are using any kind of variables in your program and if you are not defined these variables, then we will get undefined variables. And whatever is the statement for these errors, so these are different for the different compilers, right? So don't they say ki this particular statement is for the every compiler. So different compiler will interpret or display that the statement related to that error. Okay. Now second one is the logical error. So such error arises due to poor understanding of the problem and solution procedure. So as I told you, if you are not having clear idea about that logic, then you will get that logical error. So logical errors are not detected or reported by the compiler. As I said, that syntax errors are reported and detected by the compiler, but that logical errors are not reported and detected by the compiler. So when we run program which have logical errors, it generates unexpected output, right? So normally if your the logic is not correct, so sometimes what will happen, if that expected output is in sorted order, right? But whatever the program you have written, that is not it incorrect, and we can say that logic is not correct. In that case, that program will provide an output, but that output would not be in sorted order, so that might provide any other different order. Or sometimes it will show the out of n elements, so 30-40% elements have been sorted and the remaining elements are not sorted, right? So our first element is not placed at proper location, rest elements are proper placed at the proper location. So these kind of error you will get, so in this logical error, right? So that's why when we run a program which have logical error, it generates unexpected output. So that output might not be right, so that might be a different output. But in logical error, that there is a possibility to get the output, but not the correct output, we can say. Right? Now third one is the runtime error or exception. So sometimes we face some errors at the runtime of the program execution other than syntax or logical error. So as I said, these are not the syntax or logical kind of errors. So such errors are called as runtime or exceptions. So compiler cannot detect exceptions. Already I just told you. So we need to put some kind of exception handling there, because the compiler does not detect that the kind of the exceptions. So when a program have exceptions, then it abnormally terminated during the runtime. Right? So the some examples I have just wrote here. So exceptions which are handled by the program, such as array index out of range. So what happens normally, we at compile time decide that array size, suppose array size we decided that is a 10, and whatever the output you are providing to the compiler, that is more than 10. So in that case, this will again provide an the runtime error, we can say. So that is array index out of range. Or second example, already I just told you, dividing an integer by 0 are called synchronous exception also. So for that number is divided by 0, then it is provided synchronous exceptions. And the exceptions which are not handled by the program, such as the input device failure. So actually this input device failure, this is not handled by the compiler, okay, or that program. So here the terms are there like synchronous and asynchronous exceptions. So that program can be handled by these synchronous exceptions, but whatever are the unsynchronous exceptions, so these cannot be handled by the program. So like if suppose your the input device gets failed, then how your program will handle that error, right? So these, if any the devices get failed, then that error will not be handled by the program. So in C++, only synchronous exceptions can be handled within a program. So as I said, if you are the 10 divided by 0, that you know this will not provide output, then in that case we can write something into your program so that this kind of error will be handled by the program, right? So I think you might understood what is the exception, or we can say that is runtime error. So with related to this, we need to know about other uh, errors. So that's why I just told you these two errors. Okay. Okay. Now we will just take one example of this runtime or exception, right? See, this program I just told you, this program everyone knows, and this program is very correct. Actually, if only you provide here, sorry, float suppose, then that output would be correct. Okay. So this is very simple program for division of two numbers. So three variables we have declared here. We accepted these two variables suppose, and it is C equals to A by B, and that output will be printed. And with this, we can say this program will be successful. I'll just show you this. This program everyone knows this is successful program. But as I said, when this is successful and when this is unsuccessful, so if suppose that the one number is divisible by another number, that is non-zero number, then we can say that is successful. Otherwise this we can say that is unsuccessful. Okay. So just copy this so that, obviously this program is correct, right? So I'll show you this. You can see suppose 10 is first number, second number is 2, so 10 by 2, that output is 5. You can see here. Again I'll just run this program. So 10 divided by 0, sorry, 10 divided by 0, then we can say, see, this have not provided the correct output, right? So here you can see 10 by 0, it is something because this is not the output here. So as I said, if you are having the one compiler, so that will show an the different the error. If you are having support the another compiler, so that will provide the another error, right? So here, why this is because this program is correct, but we need to provide some exception handling here, right? Because here this program is error free, there is no any syntax error, right? Or there is no any logical error. This program is correct with respect to syntax and logical error. Only that third possibility is there, that is the exception, right? Or we can say runtime error. So how do we handle this kind of the exceptions? So as I said, we have the three keywords, right? So which are three keywords? First is try, throw, and catch. So these are the block we can say. I'll just tell you. So how do I handle the exceptions? So exception handling is a mechanism which allow us to detect the exception and prevent our program from abnormal termination at runtime. Right? So like in this previous example, if suppose you are dividing that 10 by 0, then we can say there is abnormal termination kind of, right? So C++ exception handling mechanism built upon the following three keywords. So as I said, these are the three keywords we we can use for the exception handling. So first is try. This is a block. Then second one is the throw, right? And third one is the catch. So it has some syntax also. I'll just tell you, right? So the try statement allows you to define a block of code to be tested for error while it is being executed. See, actually, this is not a function, but it is a whatever is the definition of this one, it is having some block of code. Right? So the try statement allows you to define a block of code to be tested for errors while it is being executed. So I'll tell you the example so that you will understand this. Throw. So the keyword throw keyword throws an exception when a problem is detected, right? So this will throw an exception when that problem is detected. So which let us to create a custom error. So when it throw that error, so it there is a one keyword that is a catch. So that keyword catch catches that keyword, and whatever the statement we need to put there for that error, so that we can put, right? So catch keyword. So the catch statement allows you to define a block of code to be executed if an error occurs in the try block. So if that error is occurs in this try block, so actually this is a pair, try and catch. So try is one block, catch is second block. So we use this try block and catch block in a pair, right? And this statement is used to throw that error, right? So this is the theoretical kind of, we can have one example so that you will understand this throw, catch, and the try. Okay, so I'll just take that same example so that you will understand. So you can see this is the syntax of this exception handling keywords. So as I said, that try and catch we use in a pair, right? So try, we simply write this try, and this opening brace here, and this is a closing brace. So in between we can say block of statements. So some statements are here in between this, but you can see this is not a function, right? This is a block of code, right? So this is a syntax you need to know. So try, then opening brace, block of statements, and then closing brace. Inside of this try we write that exception. If suppose any error is there, then we need to throw, and that will be catched by this the block, right? So throw exception. So throw an exception when a problem arises, right? So throw we write inside of this try, right? And this block, this try block and this catch block, these are the two pair block we can say. So in catch, this is a kind of function. So block of code to be handle error. So here we need to put the respective statement there. So when we just take the example, you will understand which statement I need to put here and which statement we can put here and what it would be throw, right? So that example, but just here you need to understand the syntax for this throw, catch, and try, right? So you can see this that same code, whatever this program we have written here, actually this program is the very correct. It is not having any the syntax error or logical error. But if you want to put some kind of the again more kind of validation here, so in program, while writing the program, we can avoid the exception, or we can say runtime errors, right? So how do we handle these exceptions using these? So see here, that same program I just modified. Sorry, here I have just written that in, but you consider this as a float. Okay, float in ABC, whatever. Okay, now see, uh, we have suppose accepted these two numbers, right? We have these two numbers, and after just accepting these two numbers, we need to perform the division of these two numbers. So before just division of these two numbers, we are just handling that error. So try, right, and catch. This is a block. This try is a block, catch is a block. Now in this try, we need to check. because see, we're just like dividing a by b. So to a, just I'm dividing it with b. So when that error possibility is there, so if your b value would be 0, right? So that's why I am interested in this b value. So I have checked here, if suppose b equals to 0, right? If b equals to 0, it means there is a error. So I need to throw this b, right? So if b equal to 0, then throw this b. Else, if suppose that b is not equals to 0, then definitely that division would be possible, and that will provide an answer. Okay. So if b equal to 0, then we are throwing that error. If it is not, then in else part we are just performing simply c equals to a by b, this one, and we are printing this result, right? Now whatever is this error we thrown, that we cached here. So in this catch, we need to provide the type of this b. If you are not having that idea about the type of that b, or here whatever the variable we are using x, right? So if you don't know the type of this x or that b, then in that case you can use three dot inside of this, right? Opening and closing brace. So here we have taken this b here into this catch, or we can say we catch this b value here, and here we are printing that whatever is the error we need to print here, right? So if you just provide here that statement see out like can't divide by this something, right? Then it means we are saying to the compiler, if suppose that compiler or that program is abnormally stopped, in that case this will not abnormally stop, this will provide an error like can't divide by whatever is the value of this x, right? So here you need to understand, in this try block we detect that error. Wherever we detect that error, so if else is there, if we detect this error here, so we throw that error and we catch error and we put the respective statement to that error here. Okay, so we will see again this, or I think we have this program here, or I'll just copy so that this becomes simple for me, right? You can see here. Hmm. That same program we just copied here, and just I'll try to run this program. So you can see, suppose first number is 10, second is 2, so that answer is 5. It means this is working. Again, I'll just rerun this program. So 10 by 0, then we can say can't divide by 0. Here it has been written here, right? So can't divide by 0, right? So this statement we can print here. So it means we have just handled this kind of error in your program. So whatever is the syntax error and logical error, these we can handle in at compile time. First error, whatever is the syntax error, that we handle at compile time, right? Second, also we can say while writing the program we need to handle. But here, if you know this kind of error will arise in the runtime, then what we can do? So we can handle that exception using try, throw, and catch, right? This one, right? So this is, I think, the simple example that we know. One more example I have, so I'll just tell you here. That is very simple. I just taken it from one book. Okay, so this one you can read this example. What we did here, so just we accepted one number, that is a age, right? And if suppose that entered age is less than suppose this 18, then that access will not be granted. We can say that is denied. If that age is greater than 18, so we can say that is access is granted, right? So this is a simple example here, right? But here we are putting actually like in previous example, this is a natural thing we can say. So we cannot divide any number by 0. So that is a natural thing, but here we are putting that exception here, exception handling, right? So what we are doing here, if age is greater than 18, then we are saying simply access granted, you are old enough. And in else part, what we are doing, we are throwing that age. Suppose if that age is less than this 18, then we are throwing this error, right? So whatever this age, we are throwing to this catch, and here we are taking that error or that the value, and simply we are saying here access denied, you must be at least 18-year-old, and we are printing that your age is something, right? So if you see here, we can change that also here. So here we assume that age is 15, so that output would be, because age is less than 15, so this access will be denied, and you must be at least 18-year-old. So that output is expected here. When I run this, you can see access denied, you must be at least 18-year-old and your age is 15. If I change this, it means in this value is 15, and this is thrown, and it is catched here into this function, or we can say block, right? If I am changing this, suppose like 20, if I run, so access will be granted to this. You can see here access granted, you are old enough, this one, right? So in this way we can handle that exceptions. Actually this will depend on the programmer. For this you need practice, and you need to know in advance what kind of error would be and how do I handle that error. So that kind of the knowledge if you are having, then you can write the program in that way. Okay. So second, I'll just show you this. This is not that you need to know only. You can see here. So any type, as I said, if you don't have the idea about the type here like catch, and if you don't know which type of this variable is there, then we can put the three dot. So here that same thing I just written here, handle any type of exception using these three dots. So here I have written, if you do not know the throw type used in the try block, you can use the three dots. So these three dots we can use. The syntax is this one inside the catch block, so which will handle any type of exception. So here you can see here that same program we have written here. So here in the try block, I just given this reference, this is a memory address, and I don't know actually which type of this one. So this will be automatically considered, the type will be automatically considered, and this will be printed, right? So in this case, if age equals to 15, then this would be the printed. So only here one thing you need to understand, if you don't have any idea about the variable in this catch or the variable in this type, variable type of that variable, then you can use these three dots so that you can consider that catch variable will consider the, we can say, universal type. Okay. So this, in this way we can handle the exceptions. So main thing is here, these three the keywords, using these three keywords we can handle the errors, right? So this is about the exception handling. We can have the examples, and my request is you just try some examples on this the exception handling uh, with respect to your examination. If you know that idea about this exception handling, then you can understand. If suppose any program is been asked in the final exam for the output or something, then you need to know the concept so that you can find out the output of that one. So here in that output, if suppose you are finding the output, then you need to know the concept of this only, right? So whatever is the either if or else, in either part you can write the throw. That is the thing. Like here, if you are saying if b is not equals to 0, then we can put this part into the if. And here in this case, if I am saying b equals to 0, so this part I just written into the else portion, right? but wherever throw we have written, so reverse to that throw. If suppose I have written this throw in if, then whatever the else part, that we can say the output. If this is written into the else, then we can say whatever is the written in if, that would be the output. And that most important thing is you need to think about the input of these variables. So depending on these input, you can put the respective output, right? So this is about the exception handling. So if you are having any doubt, you can ask me. Okay.